Hey, welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Today we are doing an electric range test, but not a normal one. I have with me the 2021 Jeep Wrangler 4xe, which looks like 4xe, but you know, it's not how it looks. But this is a plug-in hybrid, as you can see here. It is wrapping up charging and connected to a level 2 charger, which means it charges at a whopping 7.2 kilowatts. But it is only a 17.3 kilowatt hour battery with usable capacity about 15 or so. So it doesn't take too long, about 2 hours on one of these level 2 chargers or 12 hours at home on a normal outlet. So Jeep claims about 20 miles of city driving per se, 20 miles of electric driving. So I'm going to do a city range test, which is not exactly like our extremely scientific highway 70 mile an hour range test. This is more of what is the average Joe going to experience driving around the city at 40 miles an hour at the most, with plenty of stop and go kind of traffic, stoplights, turning. We're gonna try everything. It's a pretty nice 70 degrees or so right now. I will have the climate control on just slightly, and we'll see how this thing does. But while it's wrapping up here, let me show you a couple things around the vehicle just so you can see how it's kind of different from a standard Wrangler, even though it's mostly Wrangler. First of all, one of the dead giveaways is kind of all the blue badging and these blue tow hooks, which are Laguna blue, apparently. That's the actual color. Got some 4xe badging on the hood there. And the charging port is another dead giveaway, which you will see. Something really cool here, which actually just finished charging, so you can't see it, but there are LEDs right there that will blink as the vehicle is charging. So once all 5 are lit up and no longer blinking, that's how you know fully charged. So on the inside here, you have blue stitching, surf blue, apparently that's the color officially, plus all the red. I don't know if I like blue and red, but I guess it kind of works. But there we go, looks like plugged in, charging complete. Awesome. Around back here, one other thing that's pretty obvious, the 4xe badge, which actually I really like. It's a really cool looking badge, and it even has like a little plug-in connector on the E. Very brilliant. Another Laguna blue accent there with the tow hook on the rear, only on that one side opposite of the exhaust. And yeah, otherwise it's just a Jeep Wrangler. This is the Rubicon. You can also get the 4xe in the Sahara or the high altitude, and Jeep will be bringing it to other models and trims as well later on. And then the top this is equipped with is the standard Sunrider top, so it just kind of folds back. A very basic Jeep top. It is easier than it used to be back in the day, but I do wish this had like the one button top that just electrically moves back. That's what my mother-in-law has. It's brilliant. But yeah, it's a Jeep. It's extremely capable, trail ready, and also partially electric. So let's see how this thing does, and I'll tell you more about it on the road. So firing up the Jeep here, you have the push button start, which won't make an engine roar to life. It just kind of turns on the Jeep. You do have, instead of a speedometer on the right here, you now have a power meter, which will basically show you power percentage or charge percentage. Then on the left you have the tach, which is interesting because even in EV mode, this will actually use the 8-speed transmission. It does not have direct drive for the electrical component of it. Down here are the drive modes, which is basically hybrid, electric, or e-save. I will be throwing it into electric. That saves fuel for later use and adds a little electric thing right there on the dash. If you want to save the electric battery for later, that's what the e-save is for. And that will actually be configurable right here. It'll let you know, it'll preserve the current battery for later use. And you can say, save the exact battery or even charge it. Now, let me rant about what happened yesterday. I've been driving an e-save for quite a while, and it won't really get it back up to 100%, which is interesting because when Jeep advertises it, at least on the screen here, it'll let you know that it'll preserve the current hybrid battery level and save the battery for later use. And you can even set it to literally save the battery or even charge the battery even further. What is interesting is I put it in e-save mode at about 99%, and it has dropped down to the low 90s. Granted, it is keeping that charge, So I'm wondering if eSave is something that won't really like give you 100% battery guaranteed, but it will actually save most of the battery for you, which is honestly fine. It's not a big battery. You're not like saying night and day difference. This is sacrificing many miles of range. It's probably down to a couple miles or a mile. But I just thought that was interesting because it's not really doing what I think it advertised it was going to do. So as you can see, like I said, in my experimentation, it's not truly like, it won't keep you at 100%, but it keeps you above 90 for sure, which is arguably most of your battery capacity anyways. So you can see here, 100%, it estimates 26 miles. Now Jeep does claim 21 miles. We'll see how accurate that really is. But I'm going to reset this trip. So there we go, 0 miles. Let's see how far we can go with normal city driving. So I'm going to put it into reverse here. You have a couple different gear selectors because this is a Jeep Wrangler, specifically the Rubicon, off-road ready. You can throw it into 4 high, 4 low, 2 high, 4 high, auto or part-time. It's very capable. I actually took it on Switzerland Trail yesterday, which was really fun actually. It will give you quite a long time of off-road use because you're going so slow on those trails. It's almost like hypermiling, except on a trail. But yeah, I'm just gonna start driving around the city and I'll check in with you every so often, but I'm just going to keep it in electric mode. Now, you can't mob on this thing in electric mode. If you put the pedal to the floor, it will override your mode selection, throw you into hybrid, and kick the engine on. It'll be like, oh, you really did want to go fast. So it's not entirely like, you can't guarantee electric, but if you keep the power meter under, say, 75, you should be pretty safe. I will also note my climate control settings are pretty average. The fan is on fairly low. I have it set at about 72. We keep most of our tests between 68 and 72. So it's comfortable in here. I'm not going to go crazy with the AC, but the AC is on. We do not have the top or windows down, so we hope to be as consistent as possible, but we understand our tests are not going to be like down to a science. You can't just watch a range test and think, oh, that's exactly what I'll get. It depends so much, even just on the driving itself, the conditions, the weather outside, how many hills are involved. So again, we will be keeping this under 40 miles an hour. All the streets I'm going on have 40 or less as the speed limit. And the mixture of braking and accelerating should be an interesting way to see how accurate their estimate is for the battery life. I will note the hybrid braking with the regenerative braking is really linear. It's really smooth. You know, some other plug-in hybrids or just hybrids in general have a very strange brake pedal because you can kind of tell when it's regenerative braking versus physical braking, and it's kind of a weird breakover point. The Jeep actually has one of the smoothest brake feel I've ever felt in a hybrid, and you can't always, honestly, I wouldn't know it was a hybrid if you didn't tell me. Now, there is a button down here for maximum regenerative braking. So I'm going to turn that on and see how that affects the actual brake feel here. Wow, so that's interesting. When I let off the brakes now, it will slow me down much faster. I'm not braking at all. It is just braking for me. And the charge meter definitely showed that as well. Creep is still enabled, so it's not like a full one pedal drive system, but that is really interesting. It definitely slows you down as soon as you lift your foot off the accelerator, whereas when you turn it off, it just kind of acts as normal. So that would probably improve your efficiency even more. It doesn't feel too sluggish right off the bat. Again, it's electric torque, so even though it's a heavy vehicle, almost 5,300 pounds, it still feels like you have that immediate torque, which is a lot of fun. But you know, once you get above like 25, then you notice, oh, this is a fairly slow electrified vehicle. The electric motor itself behind the engine in front of the transmission is 134 horsepower. So 134 horsepower on a 5,300 pound brick is just not super capable. But I'll still say it is pretty fun. Interior wise, it's actually fairly decent in here. This has the leather seat package, which is about $1,700. That's, I don't know, it has a lot of packages. As a whole, this is $62,000 and a little bit of extra change. That's quite a premium. You'll be paying on average over $10,000 more than a comparable Jeep without the 4xe, which is a lot of money to add just for electrification. The 4xe does include, as standard, the premium 8.4-inch Uconnect display with the premium Alpine stereo, which is actually fantastic, by the way. I did not expect to have a stereo that good in a car that's kind of made to just, you know, rip the doors and roof off and have fun off-road. Most vehicles like that, convertibles included, just don't really think, oh, we need to invest in a good sound system. But this has made me rethink the sound system of my convertible for sure. But it's fairly comfortable in here. Not the quietest ride. Again, this is the Sunrider top, so it's just, you know, kind of a tarp type feel. Very, very thin, like plastic windows in the back. None of that is glass. So it is very weird getting into the Jeep in the morning and still hearing the outside noises. Like every time I get in here, I'm like, oh no, I left a window open. Nope, it's just not very sealed from the outside. But it is a Jeep. It's just not super comfortable around town. I don't think it's bad per se, but it's definitely made to be off-road, and it's ready to be. This has the 33-inch all-terrain tires. They are trail rated. They're ready to go. So you just, you know, you can't win in every way. It's not going to be a perfect city road glider around town. But the total horsepower is an impressive 375, and the torque is an even more impressive 470 pound-feet of torque. That is the same torque as the new 392 with the V8 in it, 6.2 liter V8. So that's a lot of torque. This is a very quick Jeep. It is the quickest one you can get without that V8. So it is fairly quick, but that is only in hybrid mode when you are pairing that 2-liter turbo with the electric motors. But you can see I am down to 90%. I have gone 3.9 miles. So that's really impressive. I am not hypermiling it in any way. I am not gingerly touching the accelerator pedal, hoping for, you know, maximum regeneration at all times. I'm just driving as I would normally drive in the city. So we'll see how this goes. But so far, I'm thinking it might be a really good range. It's hard to tell this early on. These computers are not always accurate. It says 22 miles remaining. That may not be accurate, but we'll see how accurate it really is. So something else I can show you is the actual Jeep adaptive cruise control. So you don't get lane keep assist or anything like that, but you do have kind of a radar cruise where it can focus on the car in front of you and keep the distance or not. You can control the distance here on the steering wheel with these buttons. And you have actually two different cruise control options. You can do standard cruise control or the adaptive cruise control. So with the adaptive cruise control, once it's set, you'll actually see, look at that. It's like an old 40s Willys Jeep being portrayed as a car in front of you. But then you're obviously just a modern 2021 Wrangler. You can't really tell whether that's like 4xe specifically, but it's a modern Wrangler, and then whatever car is in front of you is depicted by like a Willys Jeep. I love the little details like that. It's always fun to see what car manufacturers use as the imagery for those. But yeah, it works great. You can control the distance, the follow distance. It doesn't really like slam on the brakes or accelerate like crazy. So I think it is actually a pretty good system, but again, it won't lane keep or anything for you like that. Side note, something about their navigation. Look at how plain and boring all the green is, and then you see the lake right there, and it is like reflective and even like kind of animating itself. That is so fascinating. Yeah, what an interesting nav system. But it works pretty well from what I can tell, and has speed limit sign that's nice. And the speed limit sign will actually turn red if you are, judging by the vehicle speed, speeding. So good to know, good to have that there. I wish you could put that in the center, but I guess you can't win everything, you know? All right, we have just reached 50% state of charge, and it's saying I have 13 miles remaining, and I have gone 14 miles. So it's looking pretty promising to at least match or beat Jeep's expectations of 21 miles. Granted, like I said, that could be assuming some highway, like it's hard to tell where and why they set that expectation. This would be less aerodynamic on the highway. After all, it is essentially a brick. So maybe in the city you are getting better than that. Yeah, I love it so far, honestly. I was not expecting that. But I think it's a very capable, useful plug-in hybrid. It just really depends what you're needing from a vehicle. If you're able to go short distances around town like this, it makes a lot of sense. If you have charging at work or wherever your destinations are, it makes sense. When it doesn't make sense is when you have constant long commutes. Because once the battery is depleted, you then get less gas mileage than a normal 4-cylinder turbo Jeep because of the added weight of the battery. So that's something to keep in mind. Plus the added expense. It's hard to tell whether this really is justifiable, and so much of that depends on you as a person and what you need in a vehicle. So like for me in my hometown, where nothing was that far away, it was 15 miles all the way across the city, this really could be doable. But in something like where I am, the Denver metro area, if you're commuting all the way across Denver, it's very unlikely that you would see the fruits of driving this every day. Charging, like I said, takes only about 2.5 hours on a level 2 charger, J1772 at 7.2 kilowatts. But the home charger, which it comes with, unless you install something like 220 volt in the garage, you will be having 12-hour charge times empty to full, and it will most likely be empty if you have a commute like that. So for most people, that means you'll wake up in the morning with a fully charged Jeep, but that also can vary. I mean, it depends on your use case type of vehicle. But after having it on the trails in town, I have done, let's go back to the other trip. Yeah, I have done, 280 miles, and almost 2/3 of that have been EV only. So it's absolutely doable. But that's been me trying really hard to do that. So it really varies, but I think it's actually pretty good. And a lot of complaints with this car in general has been the clunkiness of the transmission. I have actually not experienced that in EV only mode. That seems to be only with the hybrid. Like when you're driving in hybrid mode or even gas only, it is a pretty clunky transmission, especially switching between like electric and then turning the engine on and running that. So that's mostly where that's coming from. But with the electric only, it's actually a very smooth experience, and you wouldn't even know there was a transmission if it weren't for the actual audible feedback of that shifting. See, I think I would like a 2-door like that one. But you cannot get the 4xe in a 2-door because where the batteries are is actually underneath the rear seat. So, fun fact, it's not possible, at least not yet. All right, tuning back in, I do want to point out I have now hit 1% state of charge with estimated 1 mile remaining. And I have gone 26.2 miles, so already 5 miles over the Jeep estimate with my mixed city driving. So to recap, I never went above 40 miles an hour. It was a lot of mix of stop and go traffic. Some streets were 25 miles an hour, most were 30 or 35, every once in a while 40. And I've just been driving on all electric mode. And I was not hypermiling either. I didn't launch every single intersection, but I definitely leaned into it a bit more than maybe most people. Partially because it's kind of fun. A lot of people call this very sluggish in electric mode, and I simply don't agree. I actually think Jeep is, it's on board with most CUVs, if not better. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just not that slow like what people say. I guess it depends though. If you're comparing it to other electric CUVs or SUVs or anything like that, then yeah, I could see where you're going with that. But it is no, Tesla Model Y. It's no really anything. It probably is on the slower spectrum of EVs. Now it says 0 miles remaining, but still 1% battery. So we'll see what happens here. Electric mode temporarily unavailable, battery too low. So this is where I will pull over and call it good, which fortunately I have a place to do so. So, okay, we did 27.6 miles, so about, I guess, 27.5 miles before it kicked it back into hybrid because of quote-unquote battery charge too low. That's really impressive. So 6.5 miles more than Jeep says, but what I really want to point out here is the 1 hour and 5 minutes that it took me to do that. That is an hour of city driving that this battery is capable of. So I do want people to understand that. It's pretty impressive. I think it will more than suffice for most city driving, or at least town driving. Maybe not big cities, maybe not on highways. I'm sure that would tank if you were on the highway going 70, 75, because again, it is a very square shaped brick. Something else funny I want to point out is the steering. When it's quiet, like electric only, so when I was on the trail doing electric only trail driving with the doors off, that's all you could hear was the tires crunching on rocks and then the squeaky power steering. Really quite the experience. Of course you could hear all the birds and stuff. It was magical. I think, off-roading in an electric vehicle is the future. But it was really funny with the audible sensations from this really squeaky power steering. So there you have it. The 2021 Jeep Wrangler 4xe, all electric mode in the city conditions. I think it's great. It did better than I expected, better than was advertised. And for a lot of people, this is really all you need. It's hard to either recommend or not recommend some of these cars because it's so much of that depends on your use case. But if you have shorter commutes and or charging at the end of your commutes, this really does make sense if you want that Jeep lifestyle. The capability to just take it onto a trail at a moment's notice is very freeing. It has all the normal Rubicon pieces. It's not like Jeep compromised to make it electrified. It adds some weight, sure, but it also adds some power. So let us know what you think of the 4xe. We will have much more content on this in the future, but we wanted to really quickly highlight one of its unique characteristics. I took it on the trail yesterday, going on all electric. I love it. Personally, I love it, and I did not expect to. But that's it. That's the charging test for the city driving of the new PHEV Jeep Wrangler 4xe.